Welcome to Influential Entrepreneurs, bringing you interviews with elite business leaders and experts, sharing tips and strategies for elevating your business to the next level. Here's your host, Mike Saunders.
Hello and welcome to this episode of Influential Entrepreneurs. This is Mike Saunders, the Authority Positioning Coach. Today we have with us Damion Lupo, who's the author of Millionaire Action Plan. Damion, welcome to the program.
Mike, it's good to hear you. Good to be back.
Yeah, I remember when we talked before, you had some great things to talk about, and then I saw this new book coming out, and I thought, let's kind of get on the front end and the cutting edge of what all you've been doing since our last interview, and I know you've got 5 or 6 books out, so I'm excited to hear about this new one. So give us a little bit of background on when you decided that a book called Millionaire Action Plan needs to be written and why you're the one to write it.
Well, it's funny because there's a million books on millionaires and making money and business and investing. And what I found is that there's a lot of the same information. What's unique is that this is really the formula that I've used over the last 20 years whenever I've worked with somebody one-on-one for, let's say, a year in a mentoring capacity. And I say mentoring versus coaching because a millionaire coaching somebody on how to become a millionaire is different than somebody that took a weekend seminar and is now the millionaire coach. Yeah. So I took all the practice of the last 20 years and boiled it down because what I really want to do is make sure that I can touch as many people as possible. And there aren't a ton of people in the population that can afford $50,000 or $100,000 to have me do one-on-one work with them. But I know that everybody can afford $15 for a book or being able to get a hold of the audio or whatever. It's really about getting this process into more people's into their lives. And that's what the Millionaire Action Plan is. It's the process to change the context because all the tools are out there. It's the context that has to shift. And that's what this book is all about.
I really like the way that you position that because that is a formula for a lot of success in life. I feel like, do you remember that old book called Acres of Diamonds?
Love the book, Acres of Diamonds. It's,
the book, the lecture, the concept. And in a nutshell, it's like this guy went all over the world looking for these diamonds, and lo and behold, he didn't find it. He went broke, and it was in his backyard. He just needed to, bloom where he's planted. And I feel like there's so many people that just watch for that next shiny object, and there's really nothing as cutting edge and new and vibrant as people might think, because I'll bet you that if you boil down all the principles in your upcoming book here, that it's going to be like, okay, here's a new take on this, but blocking and tackling, like get things done. What are the foundational things? They're already out there. But if Damion Lupo can take, your formula and go, okay, but what if we put them in this order and this order? So there's probably not going to be anything earth shattering like you just came up with the cure for whatever. It's just your way of approaching things and putting them in the order from what's already out there. And I think that's so exciting. That's the true definition of innovation, in my opinion.
It is. And I mean, when Cromwell wrote the book, it was like 1890. It was, it's more than 100 years ago with the Acres of Diamonds. When he did that, it was this foundational piece. And what's really funny is we have all this wisdom, if you will, that's packaged up in books today. And most of that wisdom is just a new cover on the same stuff that we've been talking about. And you could even argue that a lot of the stuff that's written in books came, like there's parables in the Bible. I mean, it goes back thousands of years. It's not anything new. And what it comes down to, it's vision, which is what everybody needs. Without vision, the man will perish. And then it takes work. So vision and work are these two crazy things that seem to be missing in society. When you really boil the fundamentals of what MAP is all about, it's about getting to the truth. It's creating a vision, and then it's doing the work and the process of doing the work. But most people just go right into the work, Mike. They go straight to what's the thing I need to do. They start doing it, but they don't have the vision, and they don't understand what's real.
Let's throw another book in the mix, and this is a popular one from, 10, 12, 15 years ago. Do you remember that one called The Secret?
Oh, The Secret, yes. We know The Secret, and everybody's thinking that they can will the money from the sky and it'll hit them in the head, and I always laugh.
Let me zen it to me. Well, here's the problem with that, and there came out, no, here's the real thing that The problem is you just said vision and then work, and most people want to start with the work. And I agree with that 1,000%. But I think that there's another subset of people that don't even want to start with the work. They want to just sit there in the vision and hope that the work is circumvented and you manifest or poof, make something happen because you think positively. Nothing wrong with positive thinking. We know we need it. That's essential. But guess what? You got to do some work. And it's kind of like also the old saying, ready, aim, fire. People want to go ready, fire, 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 aim, maybe. So, you can't jump right into the work. You got to have that vision. You got to have that plan and know that you're heading in the right direction. And then now when the work comes, because you have to do the work, then it's headed in the right direction. So I really like the way that you laid that piece of it out as well.
Well, and it's great, Mike, because this is really how I would describe a unicorn. And one of my previous books, The Unicornomics, I talk about the fundamentals of creating a $1 billion company. And if you look at, and I've started 50 plus companies, and so I have a pretty healthy basis for understanding what it takes to build something. And when you look at it, unicorns are really about people, and I call certain people unicorns. They're the ones that have visions and the work. And what I find is that the easy thing is to daydream, and it's fun. And what I've noticed, there's a lot of people that would rather just think about stuff and not do the work because it's interesting. And I say, yeah, that's great. I'm glad. And that's when you can do that and bridge the work, it's something magical happens because things actually get done. When you just have one or the other, it's like hunting. If you're going to go hunting, you have to know where you can't just take your gun and start shooting into a field of alfalfa. Like you're not going to hit anything that you're going to actually be able to eat. And it's the same thing. I mean, you can't just shoot, but you also can't just think about it and not go on the hunt. Like there is this combination, and it's a missing piece for most people, and they wonder why things aren't happening in their lives. It's because it's not from the sky. It's from the sweat and the tears and the blood. Like it actually there's a process of you going through it, and part of it is stubbing your toe, and that's a missing piece too. People don't want any pain, so we've got quite a few snowflakes out there that are really avoiding pain, and pain is part of the process. It doesn't mean you're going to die. It just means that it's not going to be perfect.
In using your hunting analogy, I'm not a hunter, but I can only imagine that if you had the right gun and knew the right place to go and knew the right place to hunt, that it would be even more effective if you had the right guide.
And that's there's a guide, and so I always like using the hunting and the farming way of approaching things, because in either one, and I think farming is a lot healthier in general, because hunting it's exhausting because you have to keep going and do it over and over again. But either one, you need a guide. Like I'm a gardener and I don't know what I'm doing. And so a lot of my stuff dies. And so I need a guide that's been there, done that, has an intuition and experience. And one of the things that's so valuable about a guide that has been through things, I always say go find an older, generally a grayer, balder person than you that's come before that has decades of cycles. And the reason, because they've been through seasons, and so they know what to anticipate. In the middle of summer, the person that has been through the fall and the winter knows intuitively that it's coming. And so if you say, well, look, it's going to be summer forever, they know, they can tell you with 100% certainty because they understand the natural rhythms. And that's why you want to have somebody that's been around, not just somebody that's read a book or has 2 PhDs, but somebody that's actually been through everything.
And the same reason why, I love your line of thinking. You know books, quotes, analogies. So another analogy would be like, hey, would you like to take investment advice for your retirement from a trust fund baby just because they have a huge account? No. They were handed that. They didn't know how to build it, preserve it, save it, maximize it. So it's all of those things that you just need to, success leaves clues. Find those people that are successful, see the clues they leave, maybe get a mentor and a guide to help, circumvent some of that pain. You're still going to have the pain. And guess what? You have to have the work. So all of that to now lead up to a question I'm thinking of, which is pick out one of the principles in your book, your map book, Millionaire. Well, I just said map in the Millionaire Action Plan. Yeah. So pick out one of the principles and go, okay, so here's the principle, and here's the work that needs to be done.
So I'm going to jump right to the end because there's really 5 pieces. There's the truth, the vision, the gap, the plan, and then the action, accountability. And the last one is what's fascinating, because I see a lot of people that even have an idea and then they take action, and then they don't really know if the action is correct. They don't know if they're 2 steps away from the end zone. They don't know if they're 99 yards away. They don't really know where they're at. And so they give up too soon, or they stay in too long. And so the accountability of having somebody, and this goes back to the mentor, it goes back to the idea of leveraging a model, a person, their wisdom. And that accountability where somebody is saying, okay, where are you at? I had one guy that hired me a number of years ago, and he came back and we were talking every couple of weeks, and he said, well, is this just going to be you asking me what I'm doing? And I said, that's where we're starting, because I need to know what's going on with you and figure out what you're getting stuck on and whether you're stretching, really what's happening. And it was creating a mirror, because I think that people have a guru inside them. I don't think any of us, and even there's a documentary called I Am Not Your Guru that Tony Robbins did. Everybody has a guru inside of them. And oftentimes the mentor's job is to simply ask a question or reflect back what somebody already knows to be true, but they're hesitant around being in it. They're concerned they might make a mistake. So the accountability is more about borrowing somebody's trust in you. It's about somebody's confidence that you get to leverage off of because you haven't been through something, or maybe it's the second time and you're not quite certain if it's going to be the same. So the accountability can change everything, because you stop hesitating. You start saying, okay, well, you know what? I trust that person to guide me, and so I'm going to keep going. And then it can 10x. We were talking about Grant Cardone earlier. It can 10x your process by having the accountability. And that's where I think people really miss out on the idea of a coach or a mentor when they look at people and they say, gosh, that person costs a lot. Whenever I hear somebody saying that X costs a lot, especially with accountability, my response is, you're not committed a lot. You're not committed enough. You're not committed totally. Once you are, you'll never make it about that person. You'll simply say, okay, if that person's $50,000, then it's going to be worth $500,000 for me to take action based on being in that relationship. So it's always interesting to hear people saying something's expensive, and that just tells me they're not committed yet. Once you are committed, there is no price tag that is a barrier for you.
Yeah. And it gets down to that mindset. And I think that too many people put the ceiling on themselves, and whether it's subconscious or conscious, they just feel like, well, my dad only earned, or, well, I've only done. So I think that there is a place, like you said at the beginning of this talk, there's a place for that visioneering or thinking or planning. There's a place for that, because you need to make sure that you can expand your thinking and really embrace what could be and can be when the work is done, and when you have the right process and guide and all of those things. So that mindset is so huge, and we could talk for days and on end on the power of the mind and the power of, I, in fact, just this past week, I was listening to an old Dennis Waitley Psychology of Selling series. And in fact, those old ones where you'll hear them say, and on this tape, you're going to learn, and you're like, wow, this is old, when the person was talking about tapes. But he said something really interesting. He's like, the power of the mind is so powerful that when people are like, oh, here comes my 4 o'clock migraine. Oh, here it is. They're like, they just resign themselves to, here's the way things always are.
We do. We go in these cycles where it tends to be like Groundhog Day. We're in a merry-go-round, and it's everything is Friday. People have heart attacks on Sunday. Monday is trauma, and all we think about is getting out of that thing on Friday, and just this cycle keeps going back in a circle, and we have these experiences, and we're unconscious, and that's the biggest shift, is to go into a place of consciousness. And one of the things that's really powerful is this purge process. In the beginning of MAP, I talk about my peak life vision, and that's where you purge and focus on your environment, your experiences, and your contribution. And that's really what creates a peak life. The very first part of that is where you basically vomit all the stuff that's not right in your life. And that came from when I was moving one time, and I got into a blank open house, and I said, wait a second, do I actually want to bring all my stuff in? And then I went to my U-Haul truck, and I said, I don't even like this stuff. I was just going to bring it here because it's been here. And so I took the U-Haul truck to Goodwill and basically dumped my life off and started fresh. And it was powerful. And I realized you can apply that, and you should apply that to the people in your life too, because a lot of times we have legacy relationships that aren't healthy for where we're going, especially when we're growing and we're expanding. We have people that are pulling us down like crabs in a box, and it's not healthy for us and it's not healthy for them. It creates friction. So being mindful and conscious of where we are and where we're going, and then being thoughtful about what needs to be in your life. And some of the stuff from your past that you've loved in the past needs to be part of your past. It needs to be part of a past ship, not necessarily a current relationship.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, that's a really the purge process really is a really interesting concept, because I think that when it makes me think of the phrase "look sharp, feel sharp." So you could probably work in, your sweatpants and never comb your hair all day if you felt like it. But when you look sharp, you feel sharp, you act sharp, you speak sharp, and then now you're executing things. So that purge concept of why don't you maybe even get down to brass tacks here, clean up your desk. Why don't you even clean up your desktop and organize your computer with some folders? Do you really need paper? All of those things tie into then that mindset that we've been talking about. I just think that is so essential. And I love that you don't get into, the Millionaire Action Plan is, make this financial move. I'm sure there's financial concepts in there, but everything you have talked about so far is foundational mindset planning strategy. And then, those normal things like you better have this and this and this with a 401k, IRA, all these financial things, because part of Millionaire involves money. So I know that you need to make good financial moves, but the foundation is getting those basics down pat first.
It is. You can't. There's this idea of that once we get the money, we can be charitable. It's this idea that once you have it, then everything is going to be good. And the reality is you've got to become it first, and becoming it is that mindset. It doesn't matter whether your tool is going to be selling pencils, or you're going to be a coach, or you're going to be an Olympic gymnast. Whatever it is, that's the second thing. You have to choose. You have to create this vision for yourself, and then go do the work to create that. But there's everything that we think about. There's a model for creating extreme wealth and unlimited, really, wealth. If you want to talk about creating $1 billion selling pencils, there's a model for that because it's been done. And it's the same thing with anything. What most people do is they trap themselves. And I'll give you a really good example, because I was at a mastermind that I do with a group of CEOs. And my vision was that I was going to have 30 people in my company. And I decided that. I was going along this last year, and we're close to 20 full-time people now. And I'm thinking, okay, 30, then I'll still know everybody. And and that was important to me, and until I talked to the guy that was running the program, Jay Geyer, and I asked him how many people he has. He said about 100, just over 100. And I said, well, what do you think about this number of 30? Because I'd like to know everybody. He said, forget about it. And I said, wow. He said, you're limiting yourself to the potential of where you're going and your vision of this company and the impact you want to have on people to break 1 million people's financial shackles. Why would you limit? It's like telling a tree to only grow 10 feet when its growth potential is 25. And I said, you're right. And so I was putting myself into a comfort zone where I thought, okay, this is what I need because I want to know everybody. Doesn't mean I can't meet everybody in 100 people. I mean, can you imagine if Jeff Bezos said, I'm only going to have 30 people instead of 300,000 people, or however many Amazon has? What would the world look like differently? So it's really fascinating to say, okay, what am I limiting myself with based on my own security issues?
And that's a really neat personal example, relevant, real, recent, because you were like, at one point, Damion Lupo was Damion Lupo. You had you, yourself, and you, I'm sure, and maybe you were hiring the first person and the second person. So you were thinking, man, 30 is a pretty darn big number. Yay. And the reason I want that 30 is I still want to know people. Well, here's this person that lifted off your mindset and said, you forget that, because if that really is one of your burning desires of making sure you know all your employees, then it doesn't matter if you have 100 or 200. You still make that happen. You just do it in groups, or you do it, one to many. So you could still accomplish that. But you just described a real time example of not limiting yourself. And if that's the case, isn't that a huge piece of the Millionaire Action Plan, whether it's yourself personally or if you're a business owner hearing this? I think that's just a really huge takeaway that people need to really, really understand.
I agree. I think that there's these steps that we have to take, and what becomes overwhelming is the idea of going from where we are. Many people are starting, whether they're by themselves or whether they've got some freelance help, and they're thinking about where they want to go, and there's this massive chasm. And we think, okay, when I was by myself a few years ago, the idea of having 30 or 50, and I believe that we'll be at 50 plus in the next 18 months, the idea of 50 people and the responsibility for 50 families based on my leadership and my vision, that was overwhelming. And so what we miss is the process in between as we stretch and grow. And that's what's been happening. We have to allow the grace and time for that. Everything is instant. Yesterday, it's instant delivery. Amazon has made us an instant digital downloadable delivery of everything has made us so impatient, and we want everything yesterday. And we don't want to do the work. And so it's really about having this grace that things go not necessarily perfectly. In fact, guaranteed they're not. I can tell you with certainty that nothing goes perfectly, that your plan is going to get knocked around. Just like going to the moon, we were off course when we went to the moon 99% of the time, and you keep adjusting, you keep re-engaging on your target. And that's what it is. It takes time. And that's one of those other 4-letter words like work that people tend to go, I don't want to wait. That's another 4-letter word, wait. Like all these 4-letter words that people get mad about. And I laughed. I'm like, well, start with your mind, figure out the tool, go to do the work, and watch your future unfold in front of you.
That's awesome. Well, I think that's just a wonderful spot to stop here, Damion, because it's been so great chatting with you about these concepts in your book, Millionaire Action Plan. You've got several books out. What's the best way people can reach out, connect with you, get more of your thought leadership, pick up copies of your books, and connect with you?
I think that the best thing for people to do, especially when we've been talking about the mindset stuff, is to go to millionaireplan.com and learn about the book and get a copy. Just learn more about what needs to be done. I think there's a lot of missing elements for people's own vision of their lives. They're not really getting the foundational contextual pieces. The Millionaire Plan millionaireplan.com is going to be a great place to start. It gives you something to do, which is that work. So the work today is very simple. You just have to do one thing. Go to millionaireplan.com and just download the idea, and then if that resonates, then dig in some more. But test it, do something, because not doing anything is basically like getting a book and putting it on your shelf and having a shelf help book that you never really engage. You got to do something. And so this is your homework today.
100%. Well, thank you so much, Damion. I really appreciate you coming on, and it was great connecting with you again.
Likewise. Thanks, Mike.
You've been listening to Influential Entrepreneurs with Mike Saunders. To learn more about the resources mentioned on today's show or listen to past episodes, visit www.influentialentrepreneurssradio.com.